Hell yeah. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the show that's more explosive than an AEW deathmatch ring.
We got to count down. We got to count down. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. But basically, what we're going to do to make this very similar to AEW Revolution, I'm going to hype this video as the greatest video in history. And then it will just be okay. It'll be a serviceable video.
Oh, God. Also, we're changing this name of the show to The Miz because he is the transitional champion for our heart.
He is. Yes. It makes me me happy and sad at the same time.
God, Bobby Lashley.
We're happy to be here for another retro review. I am former AEW superstar and the third most talented person in all of America, the Cripple Threat Rodney Miller. And with me, as always, my good friend, the Mouth of the South, Gavin Eddings.
That's what I love. Actually, people don't know this, but you were in the first AEW barbed wire exploding death match, and the explosions were much bigger, actually.
Exactly. It was mostly my orgasms, though. To train, I did not have an orgasm for two years.
And the countdown was much, much more insane and gooey. Oh, God.
Very gooey. But weirdly enough, also Eddie Kingston tried to save Jon Moxley's life from it by covering his body. We got really weird really fast on this one.
But I like it. I like it.
I think it's probably the spirit of ECW that got us in such a weird mood.
We got in there. Joel Gertner just wants me to talk about loads and jizzing.
Yeah.
That's
which is your wheelhouse, quite frankly.
Wheelhouse. Love that. Love wheels and jizzing. So we watched ECW One Night Stand 2005. It was my pick for the show, and it was fun to go back and rewatch it because it's one that I remember very fondly. I was a big ECW mark. I was like, it's so edgy. They got violence. And then I watched the show and I was like, this was a good show, but I don't think it's aged as well. And I didn't like it as much as I remembered liking it.
Yeah, well, let's hold that thought. Let's get over some of the basics here. And then we can talk about how disappointed we were rewatching it. So ECW One Night Stand 2005 took place on June 12th, 2005 from the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City for a attendance of 2,500. That is not an indictment on the show. It's just a very small venue.
It's
in
a
case
capacity.
You're not familiar. Mm-hmm. It's meant to be small and intimate like that. I could not find pay-per-view buy rate numbers, but it did well enough along with the DVD sales that they foolishly brought back ECW for a while.
Oh, God. I was so excited when they brought ECW back in 2006. That's what brought me back into wrestling in 2006. I was like, ECW's coming back? I bet they're going to do it justice. And then what happened. And but this was their first reunion show they did. I know TNA's done a bunch of reunion shows. They do reunion shows all the time at your local VFW lodge. They're like, we got Tommy Dreamer here tonight.
Well, Tommy Dreamer was also, I think, House of Hardcore essentially started. I think it morphed into something a little different, but essentially it started out from what I remember as ECW reunion shows, and then it kind of became its own thing for a while.
Yes,
before the pandemic shut it down. But
this was the first ECW reunion show. It was boosted by RVD went to Vince McMahon and said, "Hey, let's do a reunion show." Vince McMahon looked at the DVD sales of the Rise and Fall of ECW, one of the best documentaries they've ever done, and said, "Okay, we'll do it."
Yeah, that holds up. The DVD series holds up.
Yes, it really does.
Yeah, I think I have that opinion on a lot of ECW because even just casually, off and on, when I'm on the WWE Network and I feel like really diving into some wrestling, I've been going through recently 1995. Mm-hmm. So everything there's a cool site on Reddit. Someone basically has put together everything on the WWE Network in chronological order. So you can start in January and kind of go down okay, there was ECW Hardcore TV and then Raw is the next night. So you can kind of go through that way. ECW, I feel, is in 2021 incredibly interesting to hear the story of it and very disappointing to actually watch it.
Yeah, I bought some of the DVD sets and it's a lot of the same guys feuding for a very long time. And then towards the end of the run, towards 99, 2000, when they lost all the guys like Taz and the Dudleys, and they lost so many of their stars, then you're like, oh, this is Amish Roadkill, who's getting a big old push, and C.W. Anderson.
Yeah, guys that I liked, fine, but yeah, they just couldn't sustain. Once the star power started to go, it was over. And even watching, like, I'll admit, it sounds like you were a big fan of like original ECW at the time, like you were into it. I never quite got it. I enjoy, like, the stuff that was good. Like I would search out certain matches, and like I enjoy it. I have a lot of trouble with that, with a lot of indie stuff in general. And ECW more or less was a big indie.
It was
for most of the time, you know, as we would declare it now. But I'm that way with a lot of stuff. Like, I've always been that way with something like Ring of Honor, for instance. I can watch a single match and be like, hell yeah, that was great. You make me watch a 3-hour show, I'm like, oh, this is all a little samey. Like, a lot of this is very in the same vein. You know, like I know a lot of people hate on WWE now because they kind of toned down a lot of the violence. You know, there's no blood, or very rarely blood. If there is blood, it's legit blood, you know, the kind of
hard
thing.
way.
Yeah, but like, so people like, I do believe that blood can really add to the drama of something. ECW for me always had the problem. I was like, oh, Ian and Axel Rotten are bleeding in the opening match for some reason. That's just how it starts. Okay. And then it just continues like that for the rest of the show.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Sometimes there's actually a DVD that I got called Bloodsport, the bloodiest ECW matches. And there's an Ian and Axel Rotten match on there. And then by the end of it, you're like, why? There's an infamous match from ECW's history, which was Bill McGillicuddy and Bill Alfonso. And Bill Alfonso does a sickening blade job and is bleeding everywhere.
He bleeds his tiny body out. Like, his 110-pound body is just devoid of blood by the end of it. He
looks like a deflated whoopee cushion by the end of it. He's got no blood left in his body. And it became a little bit of a joke where it's like, who's going to bleed? And so by the end of that, I was like, this is a lot. And I'm not opposed to death matches. I like barbed wire exploding matches, but sometimes it can get a little samey, like you said. Like, you can only see so many death match spots in a row where you're like, he's gonna skewer him in the head now, and it's like, oh, look how shocking it is.
And there would always be problems too. And it's not even necessarily that, like, if your promotion's built around violence, cool, like, whatever. But it would also get to the point too, like this is a problem. I mean, we've had some kind of off-camera talks about you know, AEW recently with that death match. And even before the botch at the end that made it a whole different thing. For me, it felt more like, and ECW had a lot of this too, where it's like, I'm not against a death match, but like, it literally felt like they decided, like, Omega and Moxley, like Tony Khan was like, you know what? It would be cool to see a death match. And that was it. Like the story, like, I know they're in a feud and it's pretty heated, but like, They jumped from like 0 to 100. Like, oh, he screwed me out of the title. Well, I'm gonna explode him with landmines. Like, it's so over the top. Like, it just feels like it's such a big jump. And ECW had a lot of that for me, where it's just like, there's no real reason why they're cutting themselves with barbed wire right now. It's just a thing to do.
Yeah, I don't know the backstory, but Terry Funk and Sabu needed to have a barbed wire match that was so violent and dangerous. It's the only one they ever did, because like, oh no, these two people are tangled in barbed wire, and we have to cut them out so they don't like cut their jugulars open.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, and someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think that match is what initially cost them pay-per-view at first. Like, they had pay-per-views before. I think Barely Legal 97 was the first pay-per-view they did.
Yes.
I think they had plans before that, but that match was too violent that pay-per-view companies got scared. And we're like, we're not going to do this. And they basically had to do a lot of damage control to make it happen.
Yeah, because I know Barely Legal got delayed because of the mass transit incident where the kid lied about his age. But yeah, they're like, we can't put this barbed wire stuff on television. Like, this isn't, we can't show that. I don't even know if that barbed wire match is on the network.
I don't think it is.
Because it was from one of their other shows, like one of their smaller events that wasn't a pay-per-view. So I have not searched for it. I have it on DVD. I've seen it. It's fine. But One Night Stand 2005 really was the best and worst aspects of ECW all on one show. And going back, I remember some of the matches on it. One match you said off camera did hold up for you. I hope it's the same match that held up for me.
Yeah, we'll see when we get there. Okay, it's not the opener.
It's not the opener.
In case you're wondering.
All right, so some notes I took on just getting into the show. One Night Stand 2005. They got a hot crowd. They're all chanting ECW. This is a sausage fest. There is no women in this crowd at all.
Yeah, I from what I remember, and I wasn't exactly looking for that, but I just kind of assumed.
I know you're always looking for the dudes.
Yeah. The only women I think were there were Dawn Marie and Beulah and Francine. I think that might have been the only women who lived in that building at all that night.
Yeah, so it was a huge sausage fest, and you had Joey Styles come out to start the show like, oh my God, and he's getting the hero's welcome. It sets the stage for a big night, but this crowd, anything you don't like about crowds trying to get themselves over, this crowd, ECW crowds really started that whole crap of getting themselves over, and they went hard on this night. Yeah,
it was a little, and even that beginning, the opening when Joey Styles comes out, and you can tell it's really emotional for him. Mm-hmm. He's like, it's a big moment. That's what I think is part of the trouble with rewatching the show 16 years later, almost 16 years later, is that like at the moment, this was a huge deal for all of them because it was the first big thing. A lot of them got jobs for a while because of this, it was a huge kind of, and there was no guarantee at this point that they were redoing ECW.
No, it's supposed to be a one-off. Yeah.
Thing that would happen. So in the moment, because even I remember even transporting myself. This is one of the first pay-per-views I ever actually bought.
Oh, really?
To watch live. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Me and a couple of guys, I was actually doing a theater gig in the summer. And then we got together and ordered it. God, there's a couple other wrestling nerds that were in the theater for that summer gig. But I remember it feeling so cool. And then going back and watching it now, I was like, oh, this was definitely a show of the moment. Because I think there's been so much damage to the ECW brand with them bringing it back, and it wasn't quite the same, and just the billions of, I mean, Tommy Dreamer's still headlining Impact pay-per-view, and I like Tommy Dreamer, but they're still doing a lot of that still exists. A lot of this kind of ECW nostalgia stuff still exists, so it makes this not feel as fresh and special going back to
because we can still see all of these people. I saw Sabu on a GCW show not that long ago, and you watched him lose it 4 minutes because his hips are broken and he's a broken down man. So it's not special. The spectacle of seeing these guys, I can see them. I saw Tommy Dreamer wrestle at a Coliseum here in Evansville. So, and I've met him. He was very nice, but it's not a huge deal seeing him come back.
Right.
Because So the opening match though is Lance Storm, and you have Chris Jericho, who we haven't seen in such a long time. Chris Jericho, really one of his last appearances. No, we see him ever. Your close personal friend, Chris Jericho.
Yes, my buddy Chris,
Yeah, he comes out, takes on Lance Storm in an opening match, and you feel the nostalgia because Chris Jericho comes out wearing the Lionheart jacket, and you're like, oh, yeah, classic Chris Jericho. And I'm thinking, but he does the Lionheart stuff still today. So it wasn't a huge, I remember seeing it for the first time being oh, so cool. Now I'm yeah, it's just kind of Chris Jericho.
Yeah. It was I think it was the first time they really acknowledged on WWE TV the old gimmick and all. He was for the time he was wrestling a Chris Jericho match. There wasn't a ton that was super different about it. It felt weird to me, especially because Jericho. I mean, he has his detractors and such. But he kind of has a reputation for when he is doing something special or changing something up, he goes all out.
Yeah.
He's very committed to changing his persona or changing the gimmick.
Yeah, he does that so many times.
Doing this angle. And for this, it literally felt like he just found his old gear, wrestled a match, lost in a screw job ending. I'll kind of skip to the end. Just Incredible, Lance Storm's old partner, comes in, smacks him with a cane, basically. Lance Storm gets the pin. And then that was kind of it. Like there wasn't really anything crazy about it.
And every match on this show, because I took a note by when we were at like the 5th match, I was like, every match on this show is super short.
Yeah.
Nothing really kicks into high gear because they tried to pack so many people on the show. And you have the first match out the gate. It ends in a schmoz finish with Just Incredible of all people, hitting Chris Jericho and helping Lance Storm go over. And this is not I don't want to spoil anything for the 16-year-old show. This is not the last schmoz we see as the night goes on.
Yeah, which I believe was an ECW staple.
Yes.
So like that part didn't mind. This show was kind of a love letter to that type of thing.
Yeah. And
normally in a regular ECW show, not every match is going to end that way. But again, they're trying to get as many people just a little chance to shine. The matches were all just in general very short. Now the main event stuff went a lot longer than actual match time because there was a lot of before match shenanigans. But that was the longest match of the night, which according to Wikipedia clocked in at 10 minutes and 52 seconds was bell to bell. Obviously there was more stuff to it. But this first match, especially rewatching, because like a lot of people might not know this about me. You know, I have some really weird, just like personal favorites that I just love unconditionally. One is my man Tatanka back there. Woo! Shout out to my boy Gavin for that gift.
I bought you a Tatanka. I saw it at Target. I mailed it in the postal service to get to you.
Yes, the USPS got your dime for that. So there's certain guys like that. Like I love Tatanka. Hardcore Holly is one of my favorite. There's just like some weird guys that I just really attach to and love. Lance Storm is one of those guys for me. I love Lance Storm.
He's a good worker. He's not the most charismatic guy, but his lack of charisma makes him charismatic, if that makes sense.
That's the gimmick. Once they he was one of the highlights of the end of WCW for me.
Team Canada.
When a lot of that was rough and like, you know, if I could be serious for a moment, like all of that, when he's like holding like the 4 championships at the same time or whatever, like I love Lance Storm, and this was kind of being sort of billed. I think he's wrestled since, but it was kind of his retirement match. And they could have done so much more because they talked about it a little bit. His very first match and Jericho's very first match was against each other because they trained together. They're, you know, good friends. They were a tag team years ago in Smoky Mountain Wrestling and yada, yada, yada. And then it kind of was just like, okay, it just ended. Here's Just Incredible.
Yeah, there it is. I also like how the super woke chant of "she's a crack whore" was chanted at poor Dawn Marie for just existing. So watching it with 2021 woke eyes, I was like, that's misogynistic. We should treat her better.
Yeah. Like WWE did when they fired her when she got pregnant.
Yeah, that's So overall, what do you think of the match? How many stars did you give this opening?
I gave it 2.5. It was fine it was just too short, and it was kind of anticlimactic when it ended. The fact that like there was no like Jericho was just Jericho at the time. There was nothing that really other than the vest.
He had a weird haircut at the time too. He had like this nice little. He
had that weird kind of soccer mom. He had a Karen haircut basically at the time. I thought it was fine. Like I said, like I like Lance Storm. A lot of the stuff was crisp. Like it was a perfectly serviceable match, just not long enough to be anything. And the ending was kind of just. Wah, wah.
All right, next up on the show, we had the ECW Remember segment, which is super depressing because even more people from this show are dead since then.
Yes, it's very true. Yes,
just the Pitbull Gary Wolf talking over Arms of an Angel, probably by Sam McLaughlin. Just real depressing because everybody who died was like only in their early 30s.
For the most part, the saddest one that reminded me of that because like a lot of them sort of like, and I don't want to say it's their fault because everyone has their own issues, but a lot of it was like kind of their own demons got to them.
That's a nice way of saying some of them were drug addicts.
Yes. But the Chris Candido one, like it reminded me of how sad that was because his was just a botched surgery. He didn't really do anything wrong. He just had like a blood clot after a knee surgery or something like that, and just like a really freak thing. And it wasn't that, long before that.
Yeah, it was like earlier that year.
So that reminded me. I forgot how young he was. He was like 33, I think, 34.
Yeah, a lot of them were like only like, I think the oldest people were like maybe 40, somewhere around there. And Terry Funk's still alive to this day.
Yeah, and probably still doing moonsaults off his barn.
So that was a fun segment. I mean, it wasn't fun, but it was a nice segment to like show, like, look at all these people, get them on the show. Next up in the form of wrestling, we have a three-way dance, which is not a triple threat, between Little Guido, Super Crazy, and Tajiri. And this match was a lot of fun. It had the Sinister Minister, it had Mikey Whipwreck, you had the entire FBI coming out. Got to see my good friend Tracy Smothers, God rest his soul, on the show. And then Super Crazy was by himself. But how did this match play out for you?
I enjoyed it. Again, it was too, like, just, this is gonna be a running theme. It was just too short to really fully enjoy. But it was fun for what it was. Like, I thought this was the good type of ECW chaos.
Yeah. Just like crazy.
You had a balcony dive. Yeah, you had a balcony dive. You had outside interference that added to it. You know, Big Guido for, you know, it's not like he was a great worker or particularly talented, but like, he was a big dude. He was big. Like, you know, and
he was a Guido and also big. So,
yeah. And he was easily, because everyone else in that match outside, like, I think Tracy Smothers is like a normal sized dude. Everyone else is kind of tiny.
Yeah, in that match everybody's real small
for wrestlers. So like, that made it look. I thought it was fun. Tajiri looked a little. I was surprised he didn't get showcased more. This felt like a match to have Super Crazy do cool shit.
Yeah,
he was on the offense almost all the time.
Yeah, and Tajiri was he was over in WWE at this point because he had his run a little bit earlier. He always had good offense. He had the green mist, which I always pop for whoever has mist. I think that's amazing.
Mist is always cool.
Mist is always fun. But seeing him come out with like the Unholy Alliance, that was neat. I like seeing Mikey Whipwreck dressed like how I wanted to dress in 2005, just with the glowing flames from a Hot Topic. Like, that is
and that bright red hair.
Oh yeah, doing the whippersnapper. But yeah, this is one of those matches, like you said, was a good ECW. It was chaos, but it was controlled chaos. It didn't wear out its welcome, and you got to see people jump off of stuff, which is always a plus.
Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Again, length would have made it better. I forgot how good like Super Crazy is. I don't know how to describe this without it sounding weird. He's very similar to how I think of Grand Metalik. And not just because they're both Hispanic.
It's not both that. What, Ryan?
Now, it's that they have really weird physiques that make them look like they wouldn't be particularly athletic, and then they're super athletic.
Yes,
you know? It's not like, because like Grand Metalik, it's not like he's fat, but he has this weird mullet that's coming out of the back of his mask, and he kind of just looks like a normal sized dude.
He looks a little soft.
Yeah, and then like the dude like can do such amazing things. And you're like, Super Crazy's kind of that guy. He looks like he's kind of packed into that his tights like a sausage. But dude can move, and he was really good. I was happy to see. I want to go watch some more old Super Crazy stuff.
Yeah, Super Crazy stuff.
It reminded me that he was cool.
Don't watch Super Crazy stuff after this, because he was a Mexican and they made him ride a lawnmower to the ring. So,
which I like that gimmick. If it would have been a little bit more on the note, like if they were winking a little bit more, it didn't feel like they were winking.
It felt like it felt like they were just doing something super racist. They're like, what if they were on lawnmowers?
Because like. I don't know if this is like popular to say in 2021, but some of those gimmicks can work if you can tell that the talent is in on it. That's why, like, I thought Crime Time worked. Because you could tell they were being silly with it. Like that was the point. It was so over the top that it was just entertaining. The Mexicals felt more like, they just told these guys to dress as gardeners, didn't they?
They did. They did. They're like, what do Latinos do? Gardeners.
They love gardening and lucha.
Perfect. The best combination. All right. Next up, speaking of fun lucha libre, we've got an amazing match between Psychosis and Rey Mysterio. These guys had feuds in the original ECW. They had feuds in WCW. And this match for me is incredible. I really like this match a whole lot.
It was just the match that you were saying held up. Well, this was not the one for me.
Really?
I didn't dislike this. Again, it suffered from being too short. And I spent a lot of this match being mad because this was the period where it was just like cool to hate Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, he gets booed a lot in this match.
Yeah. And for that, like, and Rey Mysterio is fine. Like Psychosis was the one that was screwing up some stuff. You know, like Psychosis was the one that seemed off a little bit. I thought the match was cool. They had some really cool dives. They even mentioned it in the commentary, Mick Foley and Joey Styles, that like I think early on Psychosis was like nervous. He was like off. Yeah. And then once he hit that guillotine leg drop to the outside, then it got cool. Like after that, because then there was the big dive from Ray into the crowd and like, yeah, it was weird. I think Ray might have misfired a little bit with this crowd by doing a 619 because
that's when they booed.
That's when they were like, fuck you.
Fuck off. Get out of here. Yeah, that got one of the biggest boos of the night, aside from the Raw and SmackDown guys who would show up a little bit later on. But they hate the 619. And I get it. It's kind of like a very WWE move where you spin and kick somebody and then jump off and plancha or whatever. But it's still Rey Mysterio. He still helped put ECW on the map, and the ECW started his career in America. So y'all ungrateful sons of bitches.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked the match. It was the best one of the night so far. Again, it just was too short, and I know the show wasn't designed to like. This wasn't Wrestle Kingdom where it's going to go for 6 hours and everyone's getting a half hour to really build their stuff. I know that wasn't the point of this, but it was a tease. Like it felt like I wanted, like once they kind of because the first half of the match I hated. I felt they were off. Their timing was weird. Their exchanges weren't working. And then once they like again, right after that leg drop, I was like, oh, this got cool now. And then it was over before like I was like, oh, you're finally catching your stride. I want to see some cool stuff. And then I was like, wah wah.
It's hard when you're doing these tribute shows because there are no really big feuds building. There's no real payoff. It's just matches for the sake of matches. That's why One Night Stand 06 had the big feud between John Cena and RVD. So it had a little bit of heat going into it. So probably overall from a storyline perspective, that show is better as far as like having payoffs and having stakes. This show was just kind of like, well, you used to wrestle in ECW, get out there and do it again. We're going to run it back.
Fun. Yeah.
We're doing it live. Yours are gone. Have some fun. Just have fun.
Yeah. So I liked it, but it was it's not the best Rey Mysterio Psychosis match I've ever seen. Yeah, for sure.
Next up, we got RVD, who came out to get himself over and just basically talk about how great ECW is. This promo would have been a lot shorter if RVD would have just blown himself in the ring because it got a little much. I was like,
he interrupted Bradshaw, right? They did they have like a. Was this when they started doing like Angle and Bradshaw? Running
SmackDown started showing up and
which I actually liked. Like this. I have mixed feelings on Bradshaw overall on JBL just because a lot of like the stories of him backstage and all that. This was really good Bradshaw. Like this was the type of like promo like when he was like running down ECW like. It's the stuff that I wish WCW or WWE would do more of now, and not necessarily like running down things, but just like you could tell JBL legitimately hates the concept of ECW. Like that he thinks it's a joke. He thinks it's garbage wrestling. He thinks none of those guys are talented for the most part. So like it felt like a real thing. And that's why that's like, it had such real heat. Like, cause JBL's a guy you want to hate anyway. Yeah. And then like, you could tell he meant it though. It wasn't him just when Angle did his, like Angle's always a good promo. Yeah. But you could tell he doesn't hate. He's like, it was like whatever, like it's fine, he talked about because there was the famous story where Angle was possibly going to sign or do some stuff with ECW. Yeah, he was there the night when Sandman got crucified.
It was Raven crucified Sandman, and there's footage of that. And they're like, "What are you doing of all nights? Like, wait till next week when Kurt Angle's not here to crucify the Sandman."
Nope, we're out. But like it didn't feel like Angle had quite the same like bitter but JBL just such visceral coming out of it. He's like, man, I hate this garbage. I hate all of you. This is all trash. And like, that's what made the first half of the RVD promo cool. Like, cause again, this was even RVD mentioned it during his promo as well, talking about like, I'm actually going to get to talk and not just have everything be cool and far out or whatever. Like I know RVD. I've done some stuff with him in the past. Like we're buddies from doing a really bad comedy project together 10 years ago.
I've seen it.
It's not good. But like our RVD's a charismatic guy, and like he can talk. And WWE for the longest time just didn't let him. Like his gimmick. It's basically like what Riddle is now.
Yeah.
Riddle Life is probably a lot better promo than I'm stoned.
What's up, bro?
Yeah, it's like there needs to be more to it than that. And so I liked the RVD promo if it was like 2/3 as long as it.
Yeah, at the end it started to get like, okay, ECW sure is cool. Okay, yeah, we know you. There's no place you'd rather be right now. RVD 420 means I just smoked your ass. Okay, cool. Thanks, RVD.
Yeah.
So bye. So then I guess they were about to attack. I watched the show in 2 parts. I started kind of dozing off real late during this, but somebody comes out. Rhino comes out to attack RVD, and then the lights go out. And it's Sabu, who looks just as old as he ever has.
Yeah. Sabu was looking rough in 2005, and he still wrestles now occasionally.
Yeah,
that's. It's one of those situations where it's sad because I've met Sabu. He's a nice enough guy. Like when I was talking to him, he did stuff for that same comedy project. Yeah. He was around for that, and he was a nice guy. Like we got along. Like. I don't wish ill upon him, but it's such a sad story that like he just didn't save his money.
Yeah,
and like
so he still has to do shows. Like he wrestles around Evansville sometimes. He goes to Owensboro, Kentucky. It's just sad because he was making good money. He was hired by WWE for a while.
Yeah, he wrestled. He was a big star. Like I think a lot of people forget now because they only see the sad version of Sabu now. If you're like more modern fan. He was arguably one of the hottest wrestlers in the world in the mid to late 90s. Like the hype behind him was huge. During
100%.
Time.
He had some of the most innovative offense where we all want to call him Botch Sabu now and this, but even like the triple jump moonsault he would do was nobody was doing that. Nobody was jumping off of chairs, off the rope into the crowd. And so many of the high flyers today owe him for so much. So I've always liked Sabu. It's sad to see him wrestle now. And his time has definitely passed, but even here, he's still pretty good.
Yeah. Because he had a very distinct match he could do at that point. Like, Like I think in the 90s, like again, he wasn't a work rate guy. He's not a guy who's going to wrestle an hour-long classic.
No,
I think it's just not what his style was. He had a certain match that just worked for him, and it was him diving through shit, diving over shit, and
or
using
getting
stairs. Yeah.
Getting chairs thrown at his face, throwing chairs at faces.
Yeah,
and this match was fine. It was hard hitting. It was a nice impromptu match. I wrote in my notes, Sabu hits his triple jump move without botching. Good for him. So that was fun to see. And then it was nice to see like a table spot and Sabu winning and RVD getting to have that moment, even though he wasn't medically clear for the show, but he got to have like the band Terminator move. He got to do that skateboard move. So that was fun.
Yeah. I thought Rhino looked really good too. I forgot because like you see him now and like I don't fault the guy now. He's an older dude. He's in his 40s. He's wrestled for a while. He's still in good shape, but like he looks like just a muscle. Like his whole body was made. He was in phenomenal shape. And Rhino, I think people kind of forget. Like at the time, he was one of the most intense wrestlers at the time. Like his stuff looked believable. Like he has my favorite like spear / gore /
the gore. He's got a great gore
because it looked like he looks like he's murdering you.
Yeah,
like he really does.
And the difference between his spear and Goldberg's spear is he would look like he'd kill you but keep you safe. As with Goldberg, who would just be like, "Well, I guess I'll just run through this guy, and if he breaks his ribs, I'll break his rib." And that's why. And Rhino, for me, what I like is he's so low to the ground. It looks like he's really getting a trajectory into you, like he's almost going upward, and just a stout brick shithouse. It really complimented him. So I think Rhino, I agree with you. I think he has the best gore.
Yeah. This was a weird time for him too, because I'm rereading a little bit right now. He had just been fired by WCW like 2 months ago. This was a little bit after he had the controversy where he got into like a fight with his wife or something at the WrestleMania 21 after party.
Oh yeah,
like it was a big public display. He just was very, very immature kind of thing at the time, and he got fired. And then he made this last appearance, which, you know, good that they brought him in to let him do this. And then he goes to TNA for a few years. Like right after this, he starts his TNA run, like almost a month after he starts TNA. And then he comes back to WWE, you know, later as kind of more of a comedy act, stuff with Heath Slater. But it was just a very interesting time for him. And the fact that he was in good shape, like I can only imagine what he might have done in the WWE ring, because that was a time where he could have possibly done something cool if he just had his head on straight, you know?
Yeah, because he was over. He was the last ECW champion at their last show, so he definitely had the hype behind him. But yeah, it's weird how so many of these things, like one thing can happen to you and then you're just done for a while. Like going back to Owen, One Night Stand 2006, RVD and Sabu were both on the trajectory upward. Like he had 2 championships, they get busted for pot, and the whole ECW experiment kind of falls apart because you lose your top guy. They transition the belt to the Big Show. And it really kind of, that one marijuana bust really kind of derailed their plans for what the ECW rebirth could have been.
Yeah, I think it made like that moment, and it's a whole different topic we could talk about sometime. But I think, that moment is what got Vince gun shy. I think about, because like, oh, I can't trust these originals. Then I'm gonna do a company guy like Big Show, you know, like someone that, you know,
who isn't doing,
yeah. So it was different, and I've read some interviews or like heard some things from like Big Show talking about that time about like he was like, this is gonna suck, man. Like nobody wants me in this position, but like you do what the boss tells you, you know. And like it was such a weird time. And like I don't think it's Big Show's fault. I know, especially during that time, Big Show got a lot of shit just in general for, oh, like he's useless, he sucks, why is he here? I've always kind of liked the Big Show. I don't understand AEW fans treating it like, watch out, Vince, we got Big Show now. Like I don't think he's quite that guy, but like I like Big Show, and I think he's a good signing for AEW. He has a lot to offer. He's smart. He's one of the best big men workers, I think, of all time, as far as like being a giant. But like he was just put in a position where he couldn't possibly win during that time. The ECW fans did not want the freaking Big Show in 2006 as their champion.
Absolutely not. Speaking of company guys who never did anything wrong, the next match, Chris, what'd he do? Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero, which is, it's so sad to think that later that year, Eddie Guerrero would die. And then 2 years later, almost to the day, Chris Benoit would do what he did. Yes. So this match is a time capsule of, it's such a weird thing before. It's like a time capsule of before tragedy, if that makes sense, where it's hard to watch anything objectively with Chris Benoit anymore. It's because of what he did.
And I feel like for me personally, and I don't get mad at anyone that can still watch a Benoit match, because like he was good at his job. Yeah, you know what his job was. He was good, and if you can watch him in a vacuum and just appreciate the work, it's the same thing. Like if you're an NFL fan, you could probably watch O.J. Simpson videos and be like, oh yeah, 2,000 yards. That's like.
But O.J. was acquitted, so he was not guilty. But why would I have trouble watching Ryan? He was not guilty.
I don't know. my bad. That was on me. I find, for me personally, and I don't know if anyone else has this same issue, where like I can watch early Benoit stuff with little problem. Like you give me like 97 to 2001 Benoit, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember watching wrestling during this time. It's great. It's cool. The closer that you get to when you know what's going to happen, like this was like, for some reason, this was one of the first times I've been really uncomfortable watching him.
It was weird. He had like a weird intensity to him where, and just watching him do the diving headbutt, you're like, is this the one? Is this the one that did it?
And then especially, like, we can talk about this a little bit more during the last segment. I don't want to like mention exactly what happened because we'll talk about that. But like, Steve Austin, like when he tells Benoit to like drop the flying headbutt, literally yells, "Kill him, Benoit! kill him!" And you're like, that made me go, "Oh no!
Oh, what is happening? Don't tell me that. He'll listen."
Oh god. The match itself was pretty good. Again, time restraints. It was the second longest match. They got about 10 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a really good match for what it was. Again, this wasn't the showcase. They're not getting a half hour to really tear the house down.
It had some good chain wrestling, which was nice to see compared to what we saw with Sabu and Rhino just going through tables and stuff. So yeah, and I had seen like some of the other Benoit Eddie stuff from ECW's past and whatever. Or did they not meet in? I think they talked about how they didn't meet in ECW. Actually, I think they just may have.
Yeah,
because I know Eddie and Dean Malenko had a bunch of matches. So
yes, yeah, they did that, and then I think it was like because Eddie, I think, came in after, because I'm watching some of that stuff from '95 now. Like I think Eddie came in a little bit after Benoit and Malenko did, and then I think that Benoit and Malenko also left slightly earlier for WCW than Eddie did, so they never directly crossed paths. Like the Malenko Guerrero matches are really good in ECW. The TV title feud matches.
Oh yeah,
are really
those are really good. But yeah, just watching this match was super hard, and it was not enjoyable. And it was even sad because I like Eddie Guerrero. I think Eddie Guerrero is one of the best of all time to do what he did. But even knowing that he'd be dead in like 4 months, it's just such a bummer.
Yeah. It was good for what it was. I gave it 3. And the match before, in case anyone's counting or cares, I gave it 2.5. It was, again, just too short, but it was fun. So I gave it about 3. It was a fine match, but like it's hard to separate. It just is.
Yeah, especially the closer you get. I never thought about that. Like, yeah, I can watch Halloween Havoc 97 and Benoit be fine. But when you watch like the pay-per-view from May of 2007, you're like, I don't want to watch this.
Yeah,
I don't. All right. Next up, the next match, which exists to provide CTE research, we have Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome, which for me, watching the show back in the day, was the match of the night.
Yeah, I thought this was the match that I was talking about. I love this match.
See, I'm a little bit shocked that this is the match for you because it is very irresponsible.
I'm not saying that it was safe because it wasn't. It was just unprotected chair shots and dives through tables and everything else. But man, like there was just always something that I really enjoyed about Mike Awesome. And this was kind of like peak him. Like a lot of people, if they weren't watching ECW, and like obviously he left in really controversial. Yeah, he was the champion and basically took WCW money, and they did the weird thing where like he signed with WCW and lost the ECW title to WWE's Taz. Yeah, like they did it's a really interesting story how that worked. But like this was not, the fat chick Thriller or that 70s guy, Mike Awesome. This was just like 2 dudes beating the shit out of each other. Yeah. And again, like safety concerns, I'm trying to separate that. Yeah. Because like it would be hard to watch any wrestling if like the whole time you were watching it, you're like, well, that's unsafe. You shouldn't be doing that. Because wrestling shouldn't exist as a thing at all then. Yeah. But it's just so hard hitting and like, just so intense. It was the first match that like had false finishes, who had like, oh, surely he's dead. No, he kicked out. Like it's ugly. It's just 2 dudes beating the shit out of each other. But for whatever reason, I loved it then. And like rewatching it, I was like, oh yeah, this was really cool. Yeah. Like very dangerous, but very cool.
It definitely holds up. And I love this match. And it's definitely the match of the night. It really showed like, oh, they've got some good working in there. They've got some weapon stuff. Mike Awesome does like huge splashes. There is the one line that Joey Styles says, and he says he's in interviews where he says that he regrets saying it, where Joey Styles, Mike Awesome does a suicide dive. He goes, he does a suicide dive. It's unfortunate he didn't succeed in taking his own life, which, as we all know, Mike Awesome would hang himself a few years later. Yes. Which just that line is like, oh no.
Yeah, that's a hindsight kind of thing though. Like I don't fault Joey for saying it in the moment. Like ECWs, they said horrible shit to each other. Like that was part of it. And no one knew that was the trajectory for Awesome at the time. So again, that's a hindsight.
Yeah,
that's a thing that I wouldn't cancel. Like some people would try to cancel Joey Styles.
I wouldn't cancel.
But I was
he didn't make him kill himself.
Ago. He didn't make it. He didn't make that joke now.
Yeah, if you made it now, you'd be like, if you made that joke now, you're like, you can't be in Guardians of the Galaxy anymore.
Yeah, you're out of here.
But the show is good. One part that made me go, this is the part that made me realize that something could have gone very wrong is Mike Awesome does a top rope awesome bomb on the remnants of a table and almost puts Tanaka through like just a straight up piece of metal.
Just the shards of it. Yeah, I was like there was just such some dangerous spots. Like he drops like Tanaka on his head, I think, at one point with the power bomb to the floor.
Yeah.
Maybe the one to the floor, like some kind of toss to the floor.
Yeah.
Like a very dangerous match, but like, I mean, that's what Tanaka is also known for. I think Tanaka's still wrestling now.
He does GCW stuff. He's on like Joey Janela's Spring Break. He's still doing all the dangerous stuff that he would normally do, and he looks to be in better shape than he was back then. So good for him.
Yeah, he's younger than I thought. Like he's 48 now. So I mean, that's doable.
Which is like 78 in Japanese deathmatch years, though.
Yeah, I mean, give him 5 or 6 more years, and he's going to be WWE champion.
They're going to bring him in.
Yeah.
Or AEW will sign him as a Hall of Famer.
As a Hall of Fame guy, it's going to change the
landscape.
We need to do a video where we just review Revolution. We need to do that this week.
Oh,
Go ahead and declare now.
Okay.
I need to finish watching it. We should review that.
Okay.
That'll give us something to do while we don't have WWE Network for the next few months.
So. All right. And then the only thing I didn't like about the match, it had a weird falls count anywhere finish where he just pinned him on I was like, where the hell did this come from?
Yeah, like that was such a. I didn't mind the finish. It was very unexpected though, because he does that awesome bomb to the floor, and you're like, oh shit, and they're kind of like doing the camera shot where it's like, oh, Tanaka's laying there dead, and then Mike Awesome just jumps on him. like it reminded me of like what you would do if you were a little kid and you knock someone over. And you're just like, okay, cool, doggy pile on. I don't care. Yeah, it was. I like the match. I gave it 4. I'm probably being a little generous for what it was, but like.
It's the best match of the night
compared to everything else, and just the intensity of it, and they had like their story was just always they just beat the shit out of each other. That was their story. So this was one that actually worked in a vacuum.
Yeah,
where it's like, oh, these guys just beat the hell out of each other in the past, and now they're just beating the hell out of each other today, and it worked.
All right. Next up, we got Paul Heyman shooting on everybody. Paul Heyman comes out in his leather trench coat and ponytail and just talks shit to everybody. JBL. I never understood. I know it was a big deal at the time, but everybody already knew about Matt Hardy and Edge. But Paul Heyman be like, 2 words, Matt friggin' Hardy. That's like, that's not that big of a deal. Like that's not that big. I guess
in hindsight, I think during this time, Hardy is still fired.
He is fired. Yeah.
So I think he's not back yet. So I think, again, it's a thing that in hindsight, we know that Hardy comes back. We know that, Hardy and Edge are cordial now. Like it's like they're like, it's not quite the same, heat behind it anymore. But like at the time, I think that might have been the first time that like Matt Hardy was acknowledged at all while it happened. So like, again, in a vacuum, like in 2021, you're like, okay, whatever. At the time, I think that hit a lot harder than it did now.
Yeah, no, and I would agree with that. So yeah, he kind of shoots on everybody, and then that would set up the anti-SmackDown or anti-ECW Crusaders coming to the ring later on at the end of the show.
Yeah. Well, one thing I didn't like about the 7, because I'm sure they were just told, hey, just shoot, do whatever you want. It's the thing that like Mick Foley always talked about when he was like doing his feuds with like Triple H and stuff. Like the one famous one they talk about when Mick Foley's there. I think they're setting up the Royal Rumble 2000 match, maybe, where, he's like, well, Mankind's just, he can't face someone like Triple H, but I found a replacement. And then it's the Cactus Jack reveal. Yeah. And then Mick Foley makes the big deal about like, if Triple H didn't play it like he was fucking scared, it's dead in the water. Like it doesn't matter if he's like, oh, who gives a shit? It's Cactus Jack. The whole thing sucks. It's done. Yeah. There's no reason. I felt there was a little bit of that because when Paul Heyman makes the joke about, the only reason you were WWE for so long, champion for so long, JBL, is because Triple H didn't want to work Tuesdays. And then JBL basically no sells it. Like he oversells it by like no selling it. And it's just like,
he's
then,
kind
like, none of this matters, then at that point, like,
it's like if you're insulting somebody and you're not hurting their feelings, then you sound like an asshole, and it seems like a tryhard. So he basically like says the line, and JJBL basically does like the wank and toss motion, and it's over. So what are you doing? And now let's go to the main event, which has one of my favorite moments of all time, which is the main event is the Dudley Boys versus the Sandman and Tommy Dreamer. And I love on the show, the Sandman came out to Metallica's Enter Sandman, as he was known to do on the TV show.
Yes.
On the WWE Network version, he comes out to generic rock track number 4.
Yes.
And they, if you're not going to show the whole thing, just cut it. Just cut it from the network, man.
Yeah, I mean, it does make it seem weird and lame now. Like if someone went back, like if one of our legions of fans watches this review and decides they wants to go back. Yeah, hell yeah. If they decide to go back and watch this, and it's the first time they've ever seen it, and they've never seen Sandman make an entrance before, it's going to be like, cool.
What is this crowd's really into this one generic rock song?
Yeah. I'm able to separate as someone who kind of knows the story and has seen Sandman make his actual entrances with Metallica and all that. Like, I get it. I understand licensing rights, and like that's not cheap, and like that's a really expensive amount to pay for this one. We showed it, because I don't think he comes out to that song on anything else WWE wise, at least some of the ECW stuff. Yeah, but like they're not gonna pay for the licensing rights for hardcore television shows from 1994. But they're not gonna do that, So it's funny to watch. It's ironically, there was a situation recently with Metallica where they performed at like BlizzCon, and on Twitch, because they didn't want to get DMCA struck when they were airing the Metallica concert, they replaced it with generic music. So it's actually Metallica performing, but like they replaced it. Music rights are weird, man.
Yeah. I love
it. Like you can get struck for doing covers of music on YouTube that sounds too close to the original. There's do you know Smooth McGroove?
No, I do not.
He's a video game guy. I don't think he's done stuff in a while, but he did really cool acapella versions of video game songs. So he would do like, 8. He would do the thing where it's like 8 different windows and it's all him making the different sounds. He would get DMCA struck in all the time because it was too accurate. So like music rights are weird. So that was a long way to get to. I'm fine. I giggled with it being
I was
silly,
gonna tell you, I don't know if you watch the episodes I put up after I edit them, but the reason we don't get a lot of views is because I put John Lennon's Imagine under the entire the entire thing. So that's probably not helping in the algorithm. But yeah, it is funny though and it goes on for so long, and because that is a long song, and his entrance is just as long, and it's just like 4 chords over and over. So that made me giggle heartily.
It was. The pre-match stuff was so long in this, and it was fun, but there was so much going on because like the Dudleys got their big entrance. I'm surprised they didn't let the Dudleys do some old school Dudley mic work. Yeah, I was expecting Bubba Ray to be Bubba. Yeah.
But there were no women around to insult to their faces. Because like I said, dicks everywhere.
And then like I don't remember exactly everything that happened before this match even started. Because I know like before it starts, a fight breaks out because the BWO comes out. They do their thing. And then Stevie hits Sandman or hits Dreamer, one or the other, making the Dudleys the de facto heels for this match.
And so you got some of that stuff going on at the beginning of the match.
I laughed a lot when Kid Cash runs out and you barely know it's Kid Cash because he just gets dumped out of the ring instantly.
I think Kid Cash shows up. I think maybe Danny Doring and them may have made a slight appearance.
Kid Cash at least gets to make up for it, and he does a cool dive to the floor. He does like a springboard dive. Just a lot of like, hey, here's some dudes that are on the show and they're gonna beat the shit out. They're gonna do a spot. and they're going to fight to the back. Again, this was cool ECW chaos. I didn't mind all this. It was, let's get these guys on the show. And like, that was cool. Like, that was a cool spot.
And then you have the actual match itself, which isn't much of a match. It's just hit each other with shit in the face. For some reason, I remember liking Sandman a whole lot more than I do now, because of all the guys that we saw tonight, he is by far the shittiest worker.
Yeah, and that makes no sense to me. Like, I'm going to give a little bit of behind the scenes insight. So I know Sandman a little bit as well. I haven't talked to him in years, but he was a part of that ill-conceived comedy thing with RVD as well. So I had some conversations with Sandman. He is smart. Like, he gets wrestling psychology. Like, some of the stuff he was explaining, even for like the thing of like doing really bad wrestling sketches, he was like telling people like, no, this makes more sense to do it this way. Like, he knows wrestling psychology and then just chooses not to do it. Like, it's so weird because like he's I was shocked, and I think probably people that might watch this won't believe me, but like, he's got a pretty smart wrestling mind from the little bit that I talked to him wrestling. And then you don't see that because he doesn't do it. He's just like, I'll just drink beer and hit people with stuff. But yeah, this match was just it was just a bit of a train wreck in a fun way. Dreamer bled a lot.
Yes, I was
he
like,
bled a lot. That cheese grater stuff, and he was completely red. He was in red face.
Yeah,
he was doing a 2020 Dustin Rhodes
impression. Yeah, it was a lot of blood for them. I think Devon bleeds a lot too, which it wasn't as much. And then of course you had the big table spot at the end with the flaming table because people like fire, and they somehow did it really safely.
The fire goes out right away. Like, that was a lot of lighter fluid. They kept going.
Yeah,
like it was like the bit from the episode of The Simpsons where Homer's barbecuing and he pulls out like 6 cans, like he thinks he's done, and then he pulls out another one, and like they just kept going. I thought the match was fun for what it was. It was obviously a setup for what happened after. I gave it 2.5. That seemed to be up the theme. This is about a 2.5 star show as far as match quality goes.
If you had asked me back in 2006 when I watched it for the first time, like, this is a 12-star show in the Tokyo Dome. I love everything. Wrestling will never get better than this. Yeah. And now, as I get a little older, my tastes have changed. I was like, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. It was a cool march through memory lane for some of these guys.
Yeah. And honestly, some of these guys will never be more over than they are on this one show.
Yeah.
And good for them for getting that send off. I know Justin Credible did some stuff in TNA when TNA tried to do their ECW reunion show Hardcore Justice that I watched live. It's terrible because they didn't own any of the rights, and it's just a bad cover song of this tribute show. So cannot recommend that at all.
Well, that's weird because the next review is going to be TNA Hardcore.
Yay! EV 2.0. EV. One person, we'll get to the ending here, but one person who I really missed from this show was Raven. I feel like not having Raven on the show really hurt it a little bit because he was such a big, and Terry Funk as well. Terry Funk decided to do Shane Douglas's Hardcore Homecoming the night before instead of this Payday. And Raven missing.
Why did Raven not do it? Was he TNA still at this time?
I think he was still in TNA. I think he was still.
I think that's why Jerry Lynn wasn't there too, because I think Jerry Lynn was still TNA.
Yeah, Raven was still doing stuff in TNA, and they would Raven and Tommy Dreamer would have a feud in TNA when they both were there for that Hardcore Justice. But it would have been cool to see like Raven and Tommy Dreamer go at it one more time on like the bigger stage.
Yeah. Yeah, I never was a huge Raven guy, but I think he would have been really cool for this show for sure. Because he would, despite my personal like kind of just being a little, whatever on him, I understand what a big part of ECW
absolutely
he was.
Yeah. So. And now the ending. Oh man. Where the Raw and SmackDown Crusaders come to the ring. Stone Cold comes out because he had a cup of coffee in ECW and threatens to fight everybody. And the fight breaks out, and
basically like Austin is egging on because like the Crusaders aren't going to come down, and then Austin is pro ECW in this whole situation. So he's like, hey, you guys are going to be here and talk shit on this. Come on down. Let's have a fight. I want to see a fight. Let's fight. And like, it works. It's like that weird, like bully, like, oh, are you a pussy? You're not going to fight. I'm like, no, we ain't pussies. We're going to fight. Like it was so kind of sophomoric.
We'll do it.
Yeah, it was very true. Because like some of the Crusader, it's a really weird mix of like who was just around at the time. So I think we need to acknowledge that. Because obviously like JBL, a big deal. Edge is a big deal.
Yes.
Angle is a big deal. But then like they have Carlito, who I like, but he's there. Like fucking Maven is there.
Orlando Jordan.
Yeah, Orlando Jordan and the Bashams. Matt Morgan, who it took me forever to recognize was him.
Tomko's part of it.
Yeah, Tomko's there. Christian's there. Who again, I like Christian, but he's not exactly someone that screams like, oh, he's got a hardcore fight.
AEW highly disagrees with you.
Yeah,
Hall of Fame signing. Yeah. But yeah, I thought the Bashams, Jesus. Yeah. Oh, I don't imagine Carlito being able to fight Axel Rotten.
But he has like a barbed wire chair. Carlito's spitting apples.
Oh, Apple is no match for barbed wire chair. The big thing that happened during this Smoz, though, is the real heat between JBL and the Blue Meanie.
As everyone got like together, I remembered in the moment, I was like, oh, Blue Meanie about to get fucked up. And he does. Like you don't really get to see super closely what actually like the punch that did it or whatever. But Blue Meanie is definitely the only one bleeding that wasn't bleeding from the last match. Afterwards.
I just love that it's the Blue Meanie and JBL having the most heat. Like, how are you gonna punch the fat guy dancing? Like,
and it's weird that like I guess they're really good friends now. Like they patched it up, so it's like it's not like it was a dick move at the time for sure, because like Blue Meanie was a character guy. Like that guy, he's not a strong man. He wasn't a good worker. He was a character guy. He was a fun, entertaining character guy. He basically got hired, I think, because of this. Basically, like not prevent him from possibly suing.
Yeah, they're like, you want a job?
I think they gave him a job for a little while. But yeah, like it's just so weird that like, what was up JBL's ass where he's like, you know what, Blue Meanie. It feels like it's like that fake tough guy thing, because I think JBL legitimately is a tough guy. Like if you got especially at that time, if you got in a real fight with him, you probably wouldn't want to be in that. But like he also seemed like he had that bully mentality where he's like, oh, I could go try to fight someone like Bubba Ray Dudley, who's a fucking crazy man who might kill me. But instead, I'm gonna go beat up the fat nerd over there. I'm gonna go punch him, and that'll show how tough I am.
Yeah, so that's how it kind of. I'll always remember. Yeah, this is Blue Meanie getting the shit kicked out of him for no reason.
For none.
And then the show kind of ends with everybody drinking a beer. Stone Cold gives some stunners, and that's pretty much ECW One Night.
They beat the hell out of Bischoff too. Bischoff's the one that kind of takes all the bumps. And
is that who
it doesn't get away?
Is that who Benoit was told to kill?
To literally kill. Yes, Austin told him murder him, and then unfortunately Benoit did not. That part got locked into his brain like a sleeper cell agent.
And instead of killing Benoit, he mistaked his wife Nancy for Christian.
It's like, oh god. But that was, again, it's a hindsight thing. No one knew what Benoit was going to do at that point. But it's just like a line that you hear. I'm honestly surprised they didn't censor that line. Because they go through and they censor a lot of just like small Benoit stuff. Yeah, like if you look at the match listing at the bottom, Eddie Guerrero competes in a singles match. Is how it's like. That's what the thing is. So it's like, I know they've looked at it. They've done at least enough to make those tags and stuff. That was just one weird line that I'm surprised actually they let go through. Yeah, because they went through and edited stuff because there's a lot of like when Bischoff's getting his ass beat. And they're like, oh, what do you have to say now? He's like, fuck ECW. They bleeped that out. So someone obviously edited the show.
But they're like, nah, leave the killing Benoit in. Yeah, that'll perfect.
Yeah. Overall, though, I enjoyed the show. It's not amazing, and it was way cooler in 2005.
I would agree. It's not a bad show. It's certainly one that I'm glad I rewatched, so it kind of just took some of the shine off of it, so I can like watch it with like clearer vision now. Be like, it wasn't the best thing in the world, but I did enjoy it for what it was, and I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, I couldn't recommend this to anyone that wasn't like around when ECW was
Yeah.
a thing. Who doesn't have those memories?
It's not going to bring in new fans because they're going to be like, who are these out of shape guys hitting each other with cheese graters?
Yeah, that's going to be, a lot of what it is. And they'll be like, oh, Chris Jericho still wrestles. Neat.
So overall, what grade would you give the show?
Overall, if we're going to do the wrestling with regret A through F, I would give this a B-.
Yeah, that sounds about.
It's a fun nostalgia show. Like, again, it wasn't meant to be this big storyline show. It was literally just, a moment in time kind of show. And the match quality isn't great, but it's not supposed to be. You could tell it was important for all of them.
Yeah.
It's a fun show, but I don't need to go back and watch this again.
I don't either. I think I'm good for watching it for a very long time.
Yeah.
Which brings us, I guess, what's the next wrestling show we're gonna watch? What do you want to do?
So I've decided we'll branch off from WWE eventually, I promise. But actually, I'm gonna do it right now. I just thought of the other thing. I just thought of the other thing I was thinking of, because we probably should try to sneak in a WrestleMania before WrestleMania.
Okay.
But I
Get
don't
that algorithm.
But I don't want to do that yet.
Okay.
I want to do an equivalent show that was super hyped at the time. And I remember it not living up to expectations, but I want to see it through fresh eyes now.
Okay.
Since he is a huge deal in AEW now, I want to see the culmination of Crow Sting when we watch Starrcade 97.
Oh, we're watching Starrcade 97?
97, yeah. I don't think you probably weren't a wrestling fan hardcore yet at this point, right?
I wasn't hardcore. I started watching in May of 1997. So I was familiar with Crow Sting, but I was a WWF guy.
Got it. Okay, so yeah, Jeff, for just a little background, we can talk more about when we actually do the review. This was the big culmination. NWO is hot. This was the Sting basically becomes the Crow. He was this. No one believed him that he didn't jump ship, and he became this independent loner. It was the biggest angle in wrestling at the time. It was Sting versus Hogan. That was.
Yeah, it was a marquee match because Sting didn't talk for a long time.
He didn't talk and he didn't wrestle. He would just come down from the rafters, hit people with the bat. Basically, what you see kind of with the gimmick now.
Yeah,
but even more stoic. So this was the big his first match in a year plus, maybe a long time. And this was the big payoff. And there's a lot of extra stuff that goes along with it that we will talk about when it happens. But Starrcade 97.
Okay, let's do it. All right. Well, do you want to go ahead and promote all of your things and wares?
Absolutely, yes. So at Triple Threat 8 on all the things, triplethreat.com for my comedy calendar. I'm starting to get stuff booked where I might have a career again. Ooh! That's exciting. And as always, please comment, subscribe, all that stuff. We're still a budding channel. We're getting our legs under us, figuring out what works, what doesn't work. If there's anything you want to see us talk about, man, there's 42 subscribers right now.
Yeah,
we will probably take your suggestions. At the very least, we'll read them and acknowledge you as a human.
This is a stand-up show that we've done in the past where there are 13 people in the crowd, and we're going to talk to every one of you personally.
Exactly. You are. We love you. But if there's anything you want us to talk about, if you want us to do some top 10 list type stuff, if you want us to do reviews of pay-per-views that just happened as well. I like to doing the previews. So if you want us to do more pay-per-view previews, let us know. We're kind of a blank slate right now. So
please,
and we like talking wrestling.
Mold us to what you want us to be, you babies.
Yeah.
If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Gavin Eddings on Twitter and Instagram. You can also follow my horror channel here for nerdy horror stuff at Gavin Loves Horror. And that's it. So we're going to watch Starrcade 97 for next time.